Welcome, everybody, on this beautiful Tuesday, March morning. This is Punch Up Your Profits. Before we get started, I want to ask a question. Thank you for joining. I'm really excited to be here doing a LinkedIn Live. So my question for you all this morning is, have you ever gotten off a sales call or Zoom and immediately thought, that was awkward? So you get disconnected from your prospect and you're like, I'm really good at what I do. So why do these conversations feel so hard for me? All right, so I want to hear from you guys. If that has ever happened to you, please drop something in the chat. Let me know that you're here. Tell me where you're calling from. Let me know if you've ever felt that way about a sales conversation. There's sometimes a little bit of a delay here, so I'm not seeing anything, but yay, I'm starting to see it now. They're rolling in. Thank you, Tim. I'm happy that you're here too. Give me a thumbs up. Tell me you're here. Tell me if you've ever gotten off of a sales call or a sales Zoom and thought, gosh, why are these calls so hard for me? Yes, excellent. We've got a Tennessee, we've got a Toronto. Yay for our neighboring country of Canada. Great. So there's good news and there's bad news. Bad news is it sucks. I empathize with you. Feeling that way when you know that you're so good at what you're doing, it's a bummer, right? But the good news is that you're here today. And today I'm going to be showing you a very simple framework that is going to change the way that you think about sales forever. I'm going to claim that, right? So instead of hoping that your sales calls or your sales Zooms are going well, you're going to be able to show up and guide it confidently. Your conversations are going to feel so much smoother. Your revenue is going to go up, and you're going to feel different about what sales actually means. So you're going to leave here today knowing how to run a sales conversation that actually converts. Yes, Jason, big Glick energy. I'm really excited that you're here. All right. So I'm going to get rid of the nice little overlay, and I am going to get into presentation mode so I can share all this exciting stuff with you. For those of you who don't know me yet, my name is Melissa Glick. I am a fourth generation entrepreneur that we know of, maybe even more. Someday I'll tell you about my great grandmother who was like the madam up in Eastern Canada and had a very successful business, but that's for a different webinar. So fourth generation entrepreneur, I've had a successful tech exit and I've closed more than $50 million in sales personally. I talk about sales as a system, as a sexy system all the time. It's the engine of our business. And today I'm going to be zooming in on one piece of that business engine, which is the sales conversation. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. Well, besides for dogs and punch the monkey is a huge topic of conversation lately. But today's is the sales conversation. And the reason that I'm teaching this now is because most founders didn't start the business because they dreamed of becoming a salesperson, right? They started this business because they are really good at something. They have a skill or they have a talent or they have an idea and they want to be able to help people. And unless you do what I do, which is you help people sell and grow their businesses, this probably isn't your strength. So the way that you actually get higher converting sales conversations is by enjoying them more and having a little bit of fun with it, which means shifting your beliefs. So when I do a workshop or a webinar like this, I give you an insane amount of value. So you bet your booty that today I am not just going to be talking about limited beliefs or mindset or telling stories about myself. I'm going to be giving you real juicy value and a real framework that you're going to be able to use immediately. So want to get a little bit more participation from you guys? I would love to hear if you could just like drop in the chat a word that describes how you feel when you're on a sales call and somebody says something and then you don't actually know what to say next. How does that feel in your body? Does anybody want to be brave and share a feeling today? Anyone? So we're going to be talking today about how to change these feelings with a method that I have formulated over 20 years in sales. It's called the ACE method. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So here's what it stands for. In the ACE method, we've got the first pillar, which is authority. Okay, you have to build authority. Then we move to connect, create connection with your prospect, emotion, elicit emotion, and then lastly, disarm, right? So we have to disarm resistance. We want to lower our prospect's guard so that we can disarm resistance, AKA those objections. So before I get into it, I want to look at the structure of a sales call, because if you know where you're starting on the call and you know where you're going, you have a much better chance of being successful. And successful means closing the deal. But you would be surprised that when I actually talk about the flow of a sales call, there are so many founders that they find themselves in this sales role, but they don't actually think about what the structure of a call is supposed to look like. So that's what I want to just show you here. So you want to start by welcoming and setting expectations. Then you're going to move into ACE and guide the conversation. You're going to ask for the sale, handle the objection or any kind of resistance that comes up, and then you want to confirm next steps. Don't forget about this last piece, which is confirming next steps. All right. So this is the path that we're on here. So now we get into authority, and here's what I mean, and here's what I don't mean about authority. So starting off a sales call, you think, all right, I need to build authority here. I guess I should like talk about myself, but maybe I should share pieces of my resume or talk about things that I've accomplished. What I actually mean is by building authority is by showing up in a way that makes your prospect think, this person gets it, and I can trust this person. So to build that authority, first of all, we're here on LinkedIn. So most likely you're some kind of a thought leader, you publish content. This is a great way to start to build authority. But you don't need to like do any kind of a monologue, right? What I like to do 95% of the time, I will open up my sales call with a very simple question. And I'll say something like, I'll use Jason, for example. I'll be like, hey, Jason, it's so good to put a name to the face. So what we're going to do today is we're just going to get started. We're going to jump right into it. So what's one thing that you want to get out of the call with me today? So I said his name. I'm trying to connect with him. I'm opening in a friendly manner. But all I really need to do to build my authority is position myself in a way that lets Jason know that I respect his time. I respect my time. Let's get straight to the point, which is the point is Jason's problem or issue. Because if he doesn't see me as being credible within the first minute of this call, then the rest of it's going to be uphill. And an experienced pro like me, like I can overcome some uphill, but I've been doing this for 20 years. So you don't want to start this call on with an uphill battle. When you lead with authority like this, your prospect or Jason here, he feels safe. Like, hey, this woman, she's got me. And when he feels safe, he's gonna lean in. And that's what I need him to do during this conversation, is to really lean in. So there are millions, a billion, I don't know. There's millions of people on social media, on LinkedIn, right? And people don't just buy from somebody because they're an expert. They buy from somebody that they feel connected to, which is why the second pillar is connection. All right. So connection sometimes gets confused with building rapport. A lot of times you think, oh, no, I got to build rapport. I got to show up to this. I got to chit chat and build rapport. That is not connection. What connection is it is making your prospect feel seen. When somebody feels seen, they relax. When they relax, they open up. And they give you the woo, W-O-O, stands for windows of opportunity. These are the things that you will need in order to convert this call, okay? You need them to relax and open up. So I want you to think about maybe a time when you met somebody and you were like, oh my God, I really like this person. I feel seen by this person. So like you're at a dinner party, you get sat next to somebody who you've never met before, and the entire night, the conversation, it just goes. And at the end of the night, you think, I like this person. I really like this person. So I want you to think about what was happening during that conversation that made you feel seen by this person, that you liked this person, you felt connected to this person. Well, I've got some examples here on my presentation, but they asked you open-ended questions. They seemed curious about you. Maybe they mirrored your body language. Maybe they mirrored your actual language. Like you said, oh my God, I had so much fun doing this thing. And they're like, well, tell me more. I want to hear about this fun, right? That's mirroring language. You find common ground, okay? So this is the kind of connection that I'm talking about here. So this versus when you have a conversation with somebody and you're like, wait, I'm not even getting in one word here. Why am I even here? So I was on a call with somebody, like it was like 2 weeks ago, where I got on the call and the first 15 minutes, I couldn't even believe it. This person did not stop talking for 15 minutes. Guess what happened at the end of that call? I did not buy anything. I can tell you that. So, people think of sales mode, like I have to pitch. So when you think of it that way, you're totally missing this like human element in front of you, which is where the sales gets fun. This is the humanizing piece of sales. So when you can make that connection with somebody, you can turn conversations from transactional to like a genuine conversation. And this person will feel like that you understand them better than anybody else. And therefore, there is no need to shop around, right? They're going to hire you. All right, eliciting emotion. We've talked about authority, which builds trust. We've talked about connection, which is real rapport and people opening up. But how do you elicit emotion with a prospect? How do you actually do that? So contrary to what you might think about purchasing decisions, people don't actually make buying decisions with their logical mind. It makes sense that they would, right? Does this check this box? Does this check this box? But really what's happening is people make buying decisions with emotion. It's their subconscious mind. It's what's in their heart, right? And then that drives their logic. So the most successful salespeople, I made a post on LinkedIn about this last week, this woman who sells manifestation. She's not selling manifestation. She's selling a feeling. The most successful people out there, they sell a feeling. When you skip over the eliciting emotion part of the conversation and you end up talking about your features and your benefits, and this is what you get, here's the deliverables, the client is checking the boxes, right? They're nodding their head, but they haven't made an emotional connection to it yet. And yes, at some point you are going to have to get into the nitty-gritty. You are going to have to talk about what it is that you're actually offering, the product, the service, whatever it is, but not until you have that emotional connection. It has to come after that emotional connection. I want you to think about a rubber band, okay? I am pulling this rubber band and I'm creating some tension. This tension that I'm creating is their problem. It's their pain. And you're talking about their pain and you're pulling the tension. And then poof, you release it. And the release is your solution. It's your product, your service, but you have to create that tension before you talk about the deliverables or your product or service. So I want you to help them to imagine their life after using your product or service or after working with you. Okay, now I'm going to land the plane here with the piece of the sales conversation that people think it's the hardest part. It's what do I do when I get a little bit of resistance? Okay. And so our job is to disarm that resistance. When we hear an objection, I need to think about it. I need to ask my partner, this doesn't fit my budget. The minute that we hear an objection like that, our brain interprets it as rejection, which triggers a cortisol response. And now all of a sudden we're in this fight or flight. Like, I don't know what to do. I freeze up and I don't know what to actually say next. I'm not going to teach you how to regulate your hormones. That's not what I do. But I am going to teach you that instead of reacting to that, all you do is you slow down and you get curious. An objection is not a rejection. It's just hesitation. So your buyer, your prospect, they have this hesitation, and it's usually because we haven't done a good enough job of communicating certainty. Write down that word, certainty, for our prospects. So I have a Subaru Ascent, and I was driving and I got a blinking light. Great. What's wrong with my car? Okay. So the blinking light flashing on the dashboard, it doesn't mean that it's the light blinking is not the problem. It's just telling me that something else needs attention in my vehicle. That's what the objection is. All right. So I love this slide. Let me explain this slide to you. All right. The buyer decision curve. At the beginning of the call, your prospect, you might want to take a picture of this slide. This slide is going to be an excellent reminder to you. At the beginning of the call, your prospect is guarded. Everybody's guarded. They get on a sales call and they're thinking, is this person credible? How are they going to be pitching me? Is this going to be too expensive? Is this going to be worth my time? Their walls are up, right? They are guarded. And so your job through the ACE method is to slowly change that. And how you do that is you raise your authority. Okay. And as you do that, they start thinking, okay, this person actually knows what they're talking about. And by doing that, You lower their guard through this connection that you're forming. Now they start to relax. They start talking honestly. They're starting to get under the hood, beyond the surface level pain, into the real pain that you're going to be able to solve for them. And when you raise that certainty, you get them to describe the results that they want. And then they can start to visualize their future outcome. And they begin convincing themselves that solving this problem matters, right? And that certainty goes up and resistance goes down. So when a conversation is well led, most objections, they never even show up. They dissolve before you get to the end of that call there. All right, but I still get objections. The top salespeople still get objections. When someone tries to sell to me, I'm a tough cookie. Like there's going to be some resistance there because I want to understand, right? So when you get an objection, it's just normal, right? Chill. All we need to do is slow down and get a little bit more curious. And what that means is that at some point in this buyer decision curve, one of those pieces, it didn't go far enough. What I mean by that is maybe certainty wasn't high enough yet. Maybe they're still a little bit guarded. So instead of like fighting the objection or using some kind of like pushy tactic, all you do is you simply move back onto the decision curve. You move backwards in the conversation and you go back. You go back to being curious. You ask some more questions, and then by asking those questions, now they're going to lower their guard and they're going to understand the situation a little bit more clearly. So all we're doing is we're just now disarming that objection. So it's kind of like turning two dials. One dial is certainty, the other dial is resistance. As certainty dial goes up, resistance dial goes down. All right, so now, hi, Carrie, thank you for joining. Better late than never. All right, so now I want to ask you guys to be brave, okay? How many sales calls do you actually do a month? Does anybody want to share how many sales calls they actually do a month? Okay, I'm guessing the number is pretty low. All right, I'm thinking it's 2, 1, 5. Anybody want to share? I had 2 sales calls last month. I'm a founder of a business. I got a lot of things going on, right? Anybody want to share how many sales calls you guys have had? All right. Here's the thing though, whatever the number is, I don't care if it's 2 or 20, it can always be better. We can always do more. We can always improve our sales skills, but these are not practice rounds. Okay. When you get a sales call, it is not practice. These are revenue moments for your business. These matter. So trying to figure out what to actually say on this call when your prospect is sitting on the other end of it, waiting for you to lead the conversation, this is no bueno. All right. I bet you dollars to donuts that any or all of the following 3 things happen because the stakes are very high, right? We don't get a lot of opportunities for our sales calls because we're founders. We aren't SDRs. We aren't account executives. That's not all we're doing is pounding the phone, right? We're founders. We have a lot of things. So dollars to donuts, I bet you any one of these things or all of these things are happening. Either you get nervous and you end up talking too much, or you completely skip over the emotional questions and you go straight to explaining your offer, or 100% of the time, an objection comes up and that cortisol response, you freeze up, okay? And every time that happens, that revenue just walks right out the door. So thank you, Carrie, for sharing. 4 to 5, that's great. These matter. Those 4 to 5 calls, they matter. So now imagine what would happen if you went into these sales calls thinking, I know exactly how to lead this conversation. I know the questions to ask. I personally have 8 different banks of questions, types of questions, transformational questions, situational questions, consequence questions, all these different kinds of questions. Imagine if you knew these, you could guide the conversation, how to handle any objection that you hear because you've planned them all out. You know the objections that you most commonly hear, and you know the consequence because you know your ICP, you know your audience, right? So imagine if this call now just feels natural. It's chill. It's just 2 people talking, and one of them is actually realizing that you're the person that can help them solve their problem. This is the skill of a sales conversation. What I'm talking about right now is the skill of a sales conversation. So early in my career, I made 100 cold calls a day. I'm in my 20s making cold calls. Okay. So you can imagine that after a year of that, I got really good at sales. Okay. But all y'all, me now, like we're founders now, depending on where you are in your business. You have different volume of sales activity, but it's certainly not what somebody whose only job is sales is. There's just no way we have that amount of sales activity because we've got a million other things going on. No one hands us a list of leads. We don't have that kind of volume. So we can't be practicing on our prospects, guys. They only come around a few times a month. We've got a couple of you who have 10, 15 sales calls a month. That's amazing. And there's probably some of you that have 1 or 2. Like we can't afford to practice on those calls. Those are like the Super Bowl, right? We can't be, or let's do baseball. We can't do spring training at the World Series, right? Like these are our sales calls. This is revenue. So I have a space for you guys, okay? I have a space for you to actually practice. It's live. It's 6 weeks long. It's with a small group of founders just like you. You're practicing real discovery calls so you don't freeze up. You learn exactly what to say when the objections hit. You learn all the questions to ask and exactly when, like the perfect timing of everything. And you get all the sales tools that you could ever imagine. Your pre-qual form, you get a script, you get custom GPTs, like it's like a little Melissa sales trainer sitting on your shoulder, helping you navigate these calls. Carrie Barrett, Carrie Lynn Shaw, you guys know these people, Renee DeVore, Raina Gandhi, all these ladies, they took my cohort and they closed high ticket deals on like the first or second class. Before the class was even over, they were closing new deals, right? So scan this QR code, join me in smooth selling, walk into these World Series, Super Bowl, whatever you want to call them, walk into these golden sales calls knowing that you have the training, you have the confidence, and you have the skills not only to make more money, but to love sales. Like we don't hate sales anymore. You will learn to love sales and close new deals, right? So by the way, if you scan this QR code, you are already ahead of 90% of business owners who are actually just trying to wing their sales calls. So you're already ahead of the game. Scan the QR code. Thank you for joining this morning. How am I on time? Oh, I'm just at time. Again, I'm Melissa Glick. I am on a mission to help 1 million founders change the way they think about sales and change the trajectory of their business forever. Thank you for joining. I'll see you on LinkedIn. Have a beautiful week.